Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Black Lotus. If this is your first time here, you may not notice the change, but we are changing our format. So I believe every Sunday we're going to be going live and having kind of a roundtable discussion with these three fine gentlemen. The first one I want to bring up is Keith Anthony. Bye.
All right,
sorry. I just had a whole huge mind fart. Keith, what's your last name? Blanchard. Jesus.
Blanchard.
Keith Anthony Blanchard, and he's from the he's from the YouTube channel. What is it called? What is it called again, Keith? The
Center of Light. Center of Light
Radio and TV, yeah. And then we also have Wild Trees, who's only known as Wild Trees, and he has a Facebook group that is called Deep Wild Tech, UFOs, Technology, Science, and Memes, and we're grateful to have him here. And then we have the gentleman from DarkHour Paranormal, and I was just on his show recently, and man, love being on with him. He was a great guy. He's a great host, great show. But yeah, definitely check out Michael Roser over at DarkHour Paranormal. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it, and I'm glad you were on time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I really couldn't think of any more qualified people than the three of you. Yeah, all three of you have great minds in the paranormal world. But anyway, Lee Bodge, hi. Nice to see you here. Thank you. Greetings to
Lee,
you too.
What's up, buddy? That's my buddy right there.
Is it? Okay.
Good kid. Good guy.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about military UFOs, time travel, and also being in a UFO closet, which I was for the longest time. But anyway, let's talk about UFOs and military UFOs. What I'm talking about is UFOs that have been possibly back engineered by our government and our government scientists, and the possibility that exists, such as Bob Lazar suggests this, and he said that he worked on them. Guys, I suppose that's my first question for you. What are your thoughts on this? Michael, I'll start with you.
So, the question begs and answers, do we really have any of this technology that has been reported? And if we do, exactly where did it come from? Of course, this is a very nebulous area in our research, and what, sometimes makes it so mysterious and interesting to get into, but it's really hard to decide, yes, this is where it came from, but we have insinuations of where things may have come from. So I would probably start some people could start earlier, but I like beginning around 1940s, 1950s, talking about Roswell, possibly garnering some technology from that crash. And of course, it's widely disputed what actually happened there, but a large consensus is that they did recover some craft. So for all we know, it might have started in an event, something similar to what happened with Roswell. Now, after that, in the 50s, it's been said that there was a treaty that was signed between the U.S. government and I believe it was the gray aliens. Okay, if it wasn't the Draconians, there were reptilians involved too. I know there were many different species involved in this agreement, where they would exchange certain technology for the ability to, or the permission to, abduct a certain amount of people or life from the planet for their own empirical studies. Now, again, this is up for a huge debate. I have never seen any of these drafts of the treaty that they had come up with, but we do have to recognize that there has been an explosion of understanding technology and what we've been doing in the last 100 years, and it came from somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I would like to see that document as well, that agreement. I mean, I've heard rumors about it forever, but I've never read it. But yeah, definitely. Keith, what do you think?
I try not to think, bro. I don't need a document. I know it's happening. It's been happening. It's by cosmic design that it has happened, is happening, and will happen for as long as it takes for everything to unfold, as I think was truly predestined since the beginning of whenever, as to why we are human beings here on this rock in the first place. There's nothing more divine than being fully human. So that being said, if we hear as the prophecy of heaven on earth, this includes the entire cosmos, because we are part of their investment. And what I mean by investment is we are made of DNA, RNA of other races from around space, and we're here now to unfold this plan in the universe, which has never been done throughout infinity. It's never, you have these extraterrestrials who are truly highly evolved, to where they can actually remove themselves from their body and move into lighter natures of spirit. But having that grounded on the physical plane is what we are doing. And we need a little boost. We need a little more cosmic support to find certain vibrations. And I this has been going on for a very long time. Very, very long time. Mm-hmm. Good and bad. Both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I would agree with you as well. And one of the things that I would agree with is the fact that we do need a cosmic boost right now. I mean, I believe that the Anunnaki came here forever ago and started us up, and then they took off. And I think that other races are coming back, and I think some of them are probably hell bent on domination, but I think others are like the Pleiadians, for instance. I think that they are here to help us. Wild, what's going on with you? What do you think?
Yeah, okay, so there's been so many accounts of crash retrievals. There's a lot in South America as well that are very compelling. So I do think the evidence is strong, the persistent evidence accounts of retrieved craft. But there's 2 points I did want to make as well. One is that we know that the military, United States military, has technology far above what we could even imagine. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. So, like, for instance, you put an article about this device that could beam sound directly into your mind, in your head, So that's probably been around for a while, but we're just finding out about that. Mm-hmm. And so the second point I want to make about the military and UFOs and technology is that there's this funny story that Commander David Fravor said on the Joe Rogan podcast. So Commander David Fravor was involved with a Tic Tac UFO sighting off the coast of California. Okay. This is not related to that event, but he did tell a funny story where he used his military jet to basically prank civilians into thinking they were seeing a UFO and scare them. Okay. So I think we need to take all this into consideration. I think what we could get from this is that humans are going to be human. The military does have technology that's more advanced than we could even imagine, and they're probably using it to fuck with us somewhat, to mess with our heads. So those are some of my ideas on the topic.
Yeah. You were mentioning, beaming sound directly into your mind. A whole thing about Project Bluebeam, and they're planning on doing something like that. And do you happen to see that there's a new device out there now that you can beam like music into your head and no one else will hear it?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God, that scares the hell out of me. I mean, because that's exactly it. I mean, if it's on the market now, like you said, we probably had the technology for a long time, and the government probably tried to weaponize it. And now
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, and now they're marketing it out to the public. But yeah, that just scares the shit out of me. Ralph, what do you think?
I think it's a possibility that we're seeing a lot of military planes that are what's being reported as UFOs, but I can't say all of them are. I definitely would think that some of them are from other parts of the universe.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, where would we get that technology to begin with?
Exactly.
You know, I don't think that our scientists would be able to come up with anti-gravity kind of stuff, you know, and be able to accelerate as fast as, you know, they were reported to go.
I don't know if that we wouldn't be able to come up with it, but I think that we definitely advanced a lot quicker than we should have.
And the technology that we are using right here in this moment to have this conversation is definitely off planet, because it gives the reason why some of these beings pick up people all the time. Gene manipulation, DNA manipulation, not only for technology, but also for the spiritual technology, for people to have the awareness, to have inspiration to build certain things like this. But I think this is all intermingled. There's a plan happening, and if people want to see those things that we're talking about, all of us, they simply have to look up. Just look up at the sky. It's everywhere. You just have to want to see it, and that very want of it is what will simply just make it appear. And then you start having intuition, like something you have in a dialogue with. You learn something, you think of something a week later, and you go, "Oh my God!" And you start knowing things, and you know exactly when to look up, or you know exactly, you know, there's a conversation on so many levels with so many different beings. But as far as the military, they're now coming out, admitting it. They're showing footage.
It's about time.
I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think Bob Lazar was still a key factor in all that. But I think the truth of the who's out there is really starting to show itself.
You had mentioned, you know, pretty much all you need to do is look up. And, you know, there's this a relatively new movement called Close Encounter 5. Close Encounter.
I was going to bring that up. Yep.
Yeah, CE5. And I can't remember the guy's name. Is Dr. something or other.
Stephen
but anyway,
Greer.
Stephen Greer, thank you. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of leading up this whole thing, and it's basically that you just use your mind to call out extraterrestrials, and then they'll show up. What do you guys think about that?
If I could,
exactly. Go ahead, sir.
So yeah, I think this is true, and if you guys want, I could give a personal account I collected that kind of supports this idea. Okay. So I was in a Facebook group. Somebody posted something about, have you encountered a UFO, an alien creature? I just commented that I had. Somebody private messaged me and they said, hey, I want to tell you my story. Because I guess they felt comfortable. So this is what they told me. They were a young boy. They were about 15. They were in a field. They saw a UFO. And at the time, they were a really cocky kid. And they yelled insults at the UFO. And then that night, when they went to sleep, they woke up and there was like 3 reptilian, like kind of gray-like with a big head in his room. He said he was paralyzed. One of them was like on the wall, he said. They were trying to communicate with him telepathically. He was so scared he didn't get the message 100%. But overall, he was like, they're mad because I insulted them. So what this tells me is that they're listening to us. Like, they care. So if they could hear what we're saying, I think they could probably listen to our thoughts.
Yeah, there's no question that there's that sentience behind it, you know, in terms of how most of these beings are purportedly able to communicate. It's telepathically.
Yeah, it's almost every account that involves beings involves telepathic communication. It's common.
My wife has joined us, Terry. Hi, Terry. She asked, do any of you think that we are a pawn in an intergalactic war that the public is unaware of?
I don't know about that. I think that the common narrative today is that the ETs are a threat, and I just don't believe that. I don't see evidence of them being a threat. In fact, I see evidence of the very opposite. So to think that we might be at the center of some sort of galactic conflict at this point in time, given where we sort of are in the nature of our vibration and where we are as a collective, you know, we're heading up into the higher vibrations for sure. I don't think that resonates. I think there's more, you know, of an amicable nature behind these beings because, you know, as Keith mentioned, I do believe that we share DNA, and I actually have my own beliefs that, you know, many years ago, we were created by a handful of these races for a specific purpose, and it was done by extracting, you know, their own essence and, you know, instilling it into the form that you see now, and that would make sense in terms of a biblical standpoint, saying we were created in the image of God. So, just to say.
I want to echo this, Michael. That was fantastic. Years ago, that old world paradigm, I would say, was true.
Yes.
We were living in this war mentality, obviously. War with Iran, Iraq, all this war. So we were a part of that vibration of not like me, let's go kill. And now that's pretty much changed. When's the last war we had? It's been a while. Since lockdown, nobody's fighting, no more terrorism. All that being said, we've graduated somewhere along the way because, like Michael said, we're moving lighter and lighter into higher vibrations. So that reality is no longer a part of our story. It's gone. It's simply, we just passed right through it.
Shift right
And
into
so
it. Yeah.
we got out of duality and we're moving more onto conscious purpose. And so those beings in the universe, it benefits them that we graduate. Because we are the first ones. We are the pinnacle of creation. The pinnacle of all creation is the human being. Because any being in the universe can aspire to humanhood, but it's only through humanhood that God can be realized on a physical plane. That's what we're doing. So we're actually above any war. There's no warring that's taking place in these lighter realities. People think that there is a spiritual war in the heavens. There ain't no war in heaven. It wouldn't be heaven if there was a war going on. So I think we're above all the dualistic nonsense. Or we're definitely getting there, that's for sure.
Hey, getting back to the military UFOs, Lee Bodge asked, why fly secret tech over populated areas, then allow it to be passed off as UFOs? Doesn't it make sense with all the unpopulated places you could fly black tech? I don't know if I can totally answer that, but Ralph and I live in Las Vegas, and we're not too far away from the S4 and Area 51 and Nellis Air Force Base. We've seen quite a bit here over our area, either flying toward Area 51 or flying out by it and Nellis Air Force Base. And so although, Las Vegas is a very populated area, you can still see stuff that's flying over, those areas, even though it's quite a distance away. I mean, we've seen some stuff that we just can't explain.
Yeah, I would say that the humans are just cocky in general. And I mean, it's like, I don't feel this way, but people say if you have a gun, you get this feeling of power. Well, imagine if you got this huge, experimental aircraft. How much power must you feel? Maybe they just get cocky and they don't really care if they're flying it over populated areas.
Yeah.
I agree with him 100%. I mean, if you're someone who already has the know-how, has this wisdom, has this technology, and you've already been separated from the general public with, this particular information, why not be brazen? What do you care if you fly over a population of a few dozen thousand heads, point up at you? They're never going to make the connection eventually because the gap is so wide between the people who have that sort of information and the people who seek it.
I got a buddy of mine who also has a YouTube channel, and what he does is he lives in Summerlin, which is north of Las Vegas, and he sets up his camera out in his backyard on a nightly basis, and you wouldn't believe the amount of weird stuff he's caught on video. It's just amazing. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that the government cares. I mean, because anybody that reports it is going to be, branded as a crackpot, because UFOs don't exist, Right. So, yeah.
I wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention an idea I was playing with. It doesn't really have to do with military so much, but with UFOs. So I'm playing with the idea or the thought that perhaps UFOs are always in the sky everywhere, like over every city all the time. 24 hours a day, they're just camouflaged all the time. They probably come in different shapes and sizes. So that may be that because like we've all mentioned that if you just look at the night sky long enough and you want to, you will see something. I'm not sure if this is true, but I'm just playing with this idea, this thought that perhaps our sky is just always just like infested with UFOs.
It's a grid. Yeah. It's a grid. It's a grid of intelligence, and then we can call it a grid of light, and then we can call it a grid, just a networking system. There's an outer net, and everybody's plugged into this thing except we're trying to not only get there technology-wise, we're trying to get there through spiritual technology-wise, because it takes to have developed your spiritual technology to ever understand what's happening, what this thing is, and how to navigate and put it to use.
Yeah. Lee Bodge also asked, I wonder if the Fatima event was their version of Greer's CE5 hypothesis.
The Portuguese Fatima event, I believe, is what
Mhm.
it's referred to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I mean, because it was just basically, your mind conjures up this thing that suddenly appears.
Well, let's
Yeah.
keep in mind too what Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 actually is. It's a reminder of something that we have forgotten that's part of our natural intrinsic persons, all right? The soul knowledge of connection. Okay, he's given us a path, and it's only one of many. And I'll be honest with you, before I started doing CE5, I was absolutely doing CE5 in my own way. Before I was a Reiki master and practicing modality, I was working with what we called free energy. And that's all we had the name for it back then. So what Greer is doing is he's giving a very tangible, step-by-step, pretty foolproof way of contacting and connecting. So, while we're talking about that, keep this in mind, that it's only one path that he's been allowed to give to us in this way, that we can, through our left brain, because that we're approaching, at first with CE5, reading the material, it's something that appeals to that, and we can take the steps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So something that was mentioned earlier that really struck to me spiritually was that we're kind of like strangers in our own universe, because there's all this stuff going on, but we're not keyed into it spiritually or intellectually. So that's just something that I was thinking about.
We're all given to the belief, obviously, that aliens do exist and they are visiting us. So let's talk about time travel here for a moment, because do you think that the way they're getting here is through time travel or through like a wormhole or something? I have a good buddy of mine who was a nanophysicist, and I was talking to him about time travel, and he was like, time travel doesn't exist. And I said, okay, well, do you think that there's a possibility that that time travel could be? And he said, if it could be, he says, there's no way you could go back in time because it's already happened. The only way you could do is jump ahead of time. And he said, with our technology today, obviously, even if we were able to do it, it would only be by microseconds. And but I think a more advanced race may have perfected it. And possibly that's the way they're getting here. But on the other hand, they would have had to perfect it, because how would they get back in time if traveling back in time doesn't exist?
That would be provided that they see time the way we see it. Maybe they're not seeing it at all. So, like your friend posed the thought that, it's very hard for me to. He wants to believe, but he just can't believe that there's the mindset. That mindset is never going to let you play in a more cosmic, infinite experience. And so, I don't think they're going back in time either. Mm-hmm. I really don't. Okay. They're definitely not going to the past. Where they're going is to the place we, in this mindset, would call the past. So for them, it's not like a linear timeline that goes, okay, I'm here, this is backward, and this is where we're going forward in a natural momentum. They're not caught in that nonsense. They're not caught in that current. They're just sitting, they're using a cosmic computer, just like me. They sit here and type the browser they want to go to. Now, the story they visit, the page they visit, might be about the past. You see what I'm saying? So they're basically just using a cosmic internet just to launch themselves to focal points we may call past, present, or future. For to them, it's just all opportunity.
I see.
Nikola Tesla once said, and I'll paraphrase this quote, Earth is not a place. Earth is a realm. Okay, yeah. So if that's the implication, our interpretation of time as a linear thing is really, to me, more of a biological result of thinking rather than being an absolute truth. I believe time is cyclical, and if you're able to be aware of that, you're actually stepping in and out of what we would call dimensions, which obviously changes in terms of space and has its own physics and so forth. So, when you're looking at perhaps extraterrestrials coming back and forth in time, I don't believe that they see it in a linear sense. I think it's more of a displacing of energy or placing of energy at a specific point on a field. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Yeah. So we'll go with that.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, they're basically using their minds to transport themselves here.
Well, the method of how they're doing it is there are various ways that it's happening, but essentially, it comes down to understanding the power of the mind and spirit, and it's doing it technologically, creating a synthetic Merkaba, okay, which is something John Vala Melchizedek has spoke about at length, wherein in the human body, I won't go into the details of the sacred geometry, but for the sake of the conversation, you are able through certain disciplines to activate something, again, that is very natural within you, where you spin these tetrahedrons within your sacred field. And in doing this, you're now pulling prana in from both poles. And once you do that, you are now in a different vibration. If you continue going through with the meditation through breath, you can actually turn yourself more into, from a physical point, into a vibration of light, which allows you to travel through. He made it very specific about what it was used for, not necessarily traveling through time, but traveling through dimension. You could use this Merkaba. So it would be very easy for me to be here, go into this meditation and appear right behind you as naturally as going and getting a drink of water. But technologically, and we can look at perhaps maybe the Philadelphia experiment as an example of this technology of using and manipulating electromagnetic fields. Now, if we were able to do that back in the 40s with the limited technology that we had and those that were involved, you can imagine that some race, extraterrestrial or otherwise in the universe here, may have spent less time focusing on militarization and weaponizing whatever inventions they come across, and actually put the focus into a more right-brained interpretation of life. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they would have the ability and the knowledge not only to be able to travel with their essence and their entire body through these different states of matter or dimensions, as well as be able to, communicate telepathically, like we mentioned before, because they're actually more connected to source than we are at the present moment in the reality we're living.
And those that you were describing, or the ones that we would call aliens, let's use that word, extraterrestrials in that way, in that concept, they're using the hardware technology. And then you have the ones that are using the Merkaba that Micah was speaking about, which is a vehicle of light. You basically get in this thing. It sort of works like, if you've seen the movie Contact, the gyroscope. So basically these masters of light, we're speaking about the celestials or the higher extraterrestrials who are able to manipulate energy with their own will. They're using this vehicle of light and they spin it. What is that? Leonardo da Vinci's Man of whatever. And yeah, that's what it is.
Leonardo da Vinci's Cannon.
It's a man with 4 arms. And so when you look at this aspect, we have the technology, hardware technology, but like Mike was saying, a lot of their movements between dimensions are through physical apparatus. Some of those apparatus are alive as well. Some of those ships are conscious. And then when you get to the higher levels of energy, they don't need such craft. They can be anywhere they want in the omniverses simply at will. So I think they're both true, absolutely.
Interesting concept, yeah.
I would say that, so as far as time travel, I think it plays a major role in several paranormal phenomena. UFOs, cryptids, ghost apparitions, almost all of them have some aspect of time travel going on. I think some of the backwards time travel may be due to portals. Portals are like they're talked about in Skinwalker Ranch and the Uinta Basin. That's possibly a way to go back in time. But what these guys are saying is something I think about as well. When we think of time travel as humans, a lot of times we think about technology, the DeLorean. But I do think biologically, some forms of life can do this. As an example, there's an electric eel. And the electric eel can generate incredible amounts of electricity, right? And we could do it too, but we need technology, and the eel does not need technology. The eel's body is its technology. So I think there's certain animals, for instance, I think some instances of poltergeist are actually biological animals. And I do believe they have the innate ability to control time. And that's how they do some of their poltergeist activity. So just like these guys are saying, I do think that there's some animals or some forms of life that don't require technology their body is a technology to be able to travel through time.
I like that.
Lee Bodge asked quantum entanglement travel. Now, Lee,
Absolutely.
I have to admit
That's a
that
yes.
I don't know what that is. Can one of you guys explain that?
Quantum entanglement, the entanglement theory is you have a particle. You split the particle in half. You throw one gazillions of light years away into the universe. Whatever one in whatever universe changes, the other one changes. Not after, they change simultaneously because they're still operated by the same will, if you will. So I think Lee is offering the idea that alien technology and universe over here, they do whatever they have to do. They project literally themselves, but not through in a linear fashion. It literally, they change themselves in this universe, and this one changes here. So
I see.
there, it's a hole. It's a wormhole to the same self.
Yep. Very well.
That makes a lot of sense. It really does. But Ralph, what do you think about all this?
I don't know. I have a problem with time travel because I think if we had it, we would know it because people would be time traveling back to this time already.
What's to say they aren't?
True, but
There's been a lot of reports of people time traveling from the future. Like that one guy, he was from like, I don't remember what it was, in 2020,
37, I think.
37, 2037, something like that. And he had a pretty incredible tale to tell. And what he was saying, made a lot of sense.
Well, you're talking about Al Balick, I believe, right?
That's the
Speaking
one.
about
That's
Al
the guy.
Balick, yes.
Yeah.
Now, Al
Yeah.
Balick's story. Yeah, go ahead.
And even
go
if
ahead.
that happened, that's only one reality.
Okay.
The way
Yes.
he laid it out is to the vibrational frequency he went to. So, I mean, we have 8 billion people on this planet. So we have 8 billion possibilities times infinity for each person, time travel's real. I've done it many times in meditation, very concretely. Where are we going? We think we're going to the future. What we really want is to go further into the now, because in the now is all possibilities of where we could possibly ever want to be.
Correct.
The
there are many
idea that-
stories. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say the idea that we could time travel back in time kind of scares the hell out of me because I know human beings, and I believe in that whole butterfly effect, and I think that they would definitely change the outcome of the future.
I'm wondering, being a musician, if you hold two microphones near each other, one will cancel the other out. They call it phasing. I wonder if time travel, let's play the idea that time travel, well, I know it is real via spiritual technology. Now, as far as in the way that we're talking about this, what if there is a natural cancellation of things when you try to go back to the same place too soon with the wrong intention there? It's simply not visible for one to see. Like the guy you were just speaking about a minute ago, maybe he found a way and sifted through a crack. Or people who claim they went to our time from the future, maybe they were able to move through these cracks in the concrete, so to speak. But maybe by default and fail-safe to protect the whole universal system, the frequency you are trying to achieve requires some sort of attention and responsibility, or otherwise it's just simply not going to make itself visible.
Some points you can't get past without being love. So, for example, if
Correct.
I were to
It's key to the door. That's right. That's right.
if I were to use some sort of synthetic Merkaba, which actually did happen at Atlantis, if you want to get into that backstory, you can only go so far. You're gonna hit a ceiling, and if you're not of love in that vibration, you simply can't go any further.
Well said, bro.
Likewise.
Wild, where are you at on this?
See, whenever I think about time travel, I always think about scientific applications, just kind of seeing what things were like in the past. And then, so one thing I guess I want to bring up, and it sounds like these group of guys might have an answer to this. So I'll mention it right now, how travel into the future is possible. You mentioned it already, Damian. And this is something that's not even in fringe at all. Like if you tell any scientist, they'll say, yes, travel into the future is possible. It's called time dilation. And there's a couple of ways of doing it, but this was through Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. This is when we found this was possible. So just the most common way of doing it is if you travel very fast, approaching the speed of light. So to give you an example, if you were going the speed of light, it would take you 8 minutes to get to the sun. The sun is very far away. But if you're in a ship and you go this fast, then everything around you would look normal, like time would pass normally, but everything outside the ship would be experiencing time dilation. So it would translate to like maybe one of your years would be 40 years for everybody else. Basically, you travel into the future. That's what it is. And that is very possible. And we know it's been done. It's been done because we have satellites that are GPS satellites, and they're traveling so fast that they're out of sync in time. So when they send the signal back to Earth, we have to mathematically correct. Because they're actually
6 seconds.
Right.
Yep.
6 seconds. Every 6 seconds, it has to update. That's
So
right.
my question is this: like, if the future is there and it's somewhere we could go to, like, does that mean that it's already made up? You know, what is that? What is the implication of human like free will? You know, is everything already there?
Well, you start looking at timelines too. I mean, there's a theory that everything exists, every possibility that could ever exist is already laid out in a sense, and you sort of pick and choose. The way I look at it is you're sort of placing your consciousness on, this dulcimer, this large dulcimer, okay? And every single one of these strings represents different timelines. I'm simplifying it, of course. And you make the decision to say, well, I want to experience, the note B, and so you pluck the string, you put yourself there, and you can experience that. Again, I'm simplifying this, because you have that choice every single moment in the now to jump from string to string. And there are people who are collectively doing that same exact path with you, and you guys then agree on a reality. I think this is something that helps us as folks in our connection to really solidify the experiences that we're having together, and yet everything that we experience could be very different, being different people and so forth. So yeah, you get into the idea of string theory and the possibility that every single possibility is already laid out. It's really up to you as the soul and the conscious creator to decide which, reality and what path you'd like to experience.
Yeah.
And either way, whatever you choose, you're right.
Yeah. Well,
I like that.
If the soul is benign in respect to experience, saying, well, I don't have a preference, okay? I could experience the worst thing that you and I could think of. I could experience the most joyous thing that you and I can think of. It doesn't matter to me. I just want the experience. That would really explain why there's a lot of this duality in, the reality that we live in and experience.
Coral, I hope I'm saying this right. Coral on, she commented, she said, wasn't Valiant Thor a time traveler? And he addressed the United Nations. She says, although I can't remember what he said there. Honestly, Coral, I don't remember what he said either. I do remember the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall, I don't know if he was so much of a time traveler as he claimed to be a Pleiadian.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting looking guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What planet did he say? Because I thought he said he was from a planet, and then recently there was scientific evidence that there's gases that indicate there's life on that planet. It might have been Jupiter. I'm not sure.
Was it
I don't remember. It's something to look up, though. That's curious.
Yeah,
Curious.
I don't know. But I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say one more practical thing about time travel. So I mentioned earlier, I do think time travel plays a big role in a whole bunch of paranormal things. And so I'll mention one example, which is missing time. So I think missing time has to do with time travel. Now, missing time is reported associated with UFOs and with fairies, and I believe with poltergeists as well. But let's just talk about fairies, okay? So fairies, some of the accounts of fairies say that if you were walking in the woods, you saw a ring of fairies like dancing, you shouldn't go near them, because if you go into this ring of fairies and you dance and you're married with them, you may feel like you spend an afternoon there, but in reality, you spend like a lot more time when you get out.
Mm-hmm.
It'll really mess with your time. So I think that's time travel is involved, and I think that's what I mentioned earlier, time dilation. Because I think what happens is, in order for these things to kind of get away with some of the things they're doing, this is just a hypothesis, but in order for some of these UFOs or fairies or poltergeists to get away with what they're doing, they could take you and put you in this time dilation bubble. And then I think when you're in this time dilation bubble, you're kind of invisible to the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happening is when you're hanging out with them, you're experiencing time dilation. So what feels to you like 10 minutes may feel a lot like 2 hours outside. Because the thing about time dilation also, it's like a dial. It's like a fine dial. You could crank it up or down as much as you want. So you could do it like 1 minute in time dilation mode equals 10 minutes outside, or 1 minute equals 2 hours. You know, it's a scale. So I know you guys experienced some missing time when you were younger.
Yeah.
And a lot of people
Yeah, Ralph and I experienced some missing time back when we were kids, and we were in Oceanside, California, and we were going back home to Claremont, California, and you're talking about a good 2.5 hour drive. Excuse me, and but the drive only took what seemed to be 15 minutes. It was really weird. You know, and I know a lot of alien abductees talk about missing time and while they're on the ship. And Travis Walton is a great example of that, you know. But we don't know if we were abducted when we experienced that missing time. I missed some time during my abduction, but it was brief, I think, because I think I was placed back in my car the next morning, because when I was abducted, it happened at nighttime, and I think it was the next morning, but I'm not sure because I was homeless at the time, and so I wasn't really keeping track of dates, and so I don't know if how long I was on that ship. Actually, I have no idea. But now that we're talking about abductions, I want to get into the whole thing about people coming out of the UFO closet. The abduction that I experienced happened back in 1988, but I didn't remember any of it until 1995. Mm-hmm. So between 1995 and about maybe 2 years ago, I kept my mouth shut about it. I mean, people who were very close to me knew about it, but nobody knew about it. And one of the reasons is because I had a job, and, you know, it's not like you, Wild, where you're into science and biology, where, you know, you could be highly criticized because of your beliefs. I had a job where I was a restaurant manager, but I had to have some sort of modicum of respect for my employees, and I didn't want them thinking that I was some sort of UFO crackpot. And so I can really understand why people want to be in the UFO closet. However, since I came public about this, I feel like this huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. How do you guys feel about that? Well, let's start with you, Wild. Because yeah,
with me,
so
Wild.
Oh, Wild.
Yeah,
I didn't hear what you said.
Well, I get to speak more towards the academic reasons why. So, like, you know, some of the greats, like Jacques Vallée, which is he's a French UFO researcher. He was during his early career, he was in what was called the Invisible College. So basically, he was a computer scientist and he's an astronomer, but he had to keep all of this stuff on the down low, all this UFO stuff on the down low. And yeah, I'll tell you one story. I was teaching at a university, and I wanted to bring up to my boss the article that had just come out about ATIP. It was in the New York Times, and he like freaked out. He like, before he pulled up the article, he like closed all the windows in his office. He looked on the hallway. He wanted to turn safe search on. I mean, he was really paranoid about just looking at an article from the New York Times about UFOs, because that's how highly stigmatized it is in the scientific community.
Sure, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the scientific community, I know the reason why it's stigmatized, basically. So when there's major discoveries that impact the world, you know, most of those discoveries come from the academic world. This means they come from professors at big universities that have research laboratories. So they teach, but they also are doing cutting edge science. Okay. Now, discoveries can also come from the government and from the private sector, but it's like, but if you pay for it, then you keep it. It's like your secret. So the private industry and the government, they're not going to share, but the academic world, they have to publish it. And that means anybody can find out. Okay. So the academic community gets most of its money, because it costs millions of dollars to do these projects. They get most of their money from the government. Okay.
Mhm.
And so the government puts stipulations on what kind of research, what the money can be used for. So it's really the government who's saying this is for, cancer research. This is for invasive insects. So as long as the government doesn't give any money to support paranormal research, then nobody's going to do paranormal research. And as long as nobody's doing paranormal research, it's going to remain stigmatized. So that's
Yeah,
basically what's happening in the academic world.
Yeah. I think, I like I said, I totally understand why people would want to stay in the closet about it, regardless of what you do, who you are. I mean, I've known some people that, it's not based on their career, their secrecy. A lot of people seem to, and I was this way for a long time, well, did I really experience that? I thought maybe I was just going a little crazy. And like I said, I was homeless at the time and I was subsisting off of Vienna sausages. And, to this day, I can't eat Vienna sausages. But, so I thought, well, for the longest time, I thought, well, maybe I was just not eating right. And so maybe I was just hallucinating, but, the more I thought about it, the more vivid these flashbacks came to me. I just couldn't deny it anymore. And that's when I really started looking into alien abductees, and our stories pretty much all mesh. And, prior to me first remembering the experience, I didn't really believe in UFOs. I mean, I believed in extraterrestrials because in this vast universe, obviously, there's other life forms out there. I just didn't think that they had any real interest in us. And so I didn't really believe in it. So I didn't really listen to a lot of abductee stories or anything like that. But again, once I started coming to the realization that it actually did happen, I started looking into these other abductee stories, and they're very similar to what I experienced, extremely similar. I have a good friend of mine, Paul Dellis, who experienced almost exactly what I experienced on this large triangular ship. And, he describes the same kind of surroundings and, what happened to him. And yeah.
There's another reason why I just thought about that. You may want to you may want to stay in the closet. Okay. And it's more of a, I don't know. Okay. Let me just explain what it is. So a lot of people, they don't want to think about the paranormal because it really messes with their worldview, and it could put them in a really fragile mental state. It could really cause them harm just thinking about it. So because of the volatility of the subject, that's another reason to stay in a closet. That's why you may not want to, like, every person I meet, I do want to talk about the paranormal, but I ease myself into it. I always say something like, have you ever seen any like weird light in the sky? I kind of ease my way into it, and then but I have lost friendships, and I have lost potential friendships with people because they don't want to think about the paranormal at all. Like, it totally freaks them out. So that's just another reason why you may want it to stay in a closet around certain people.
Yeah.
This is making me laugh a little bit because I remember, I think it was, I don't know, maybe last year sometime, I can't recall exactly. And I was starting to meet some girls and so forth, and, getting to know a few people, and, everything was really good until I mentioned anything about the paranormal. And that was just like a light switch. I was like, oh, okay, all right, well, all right, I get it. But, that you raise a good point, Wild Trees. There's a lot to protect in, certain people's lives. But, at the end of the day, you kind of, in my opinion, look at your situation, your life, and, what might actually happen here. What's the real loss? I mean, because in essence, when you're keeping something like this in, you're not necessarily being true to yourself in the respect that you have this to express. You have something to share. And as time goes on, you might even realize that you sharing it might help somebody else. You know what I mean? It's a lesson in personal power. It's a lesson in shedding the worldview that everything else is trying to give you. It's a lesson in becoming a strengthened character and individual eventually, but people have to be ready for that. They have to be confident in their own belief that, one, it actually happened to them, two, that they believe it happened. You know what I mean? Those are really precursory things that have to occur first before you can full on step out, or at least have the adventurous nature to say, hey, something good could come of this. There was an individual I have had the pleasure of interviewing and talking to many times by the name of Wreakin' Havoc, who I have mentioned in other broadcasts with a couple of you guys here. But this person was taken at the age of 14. And because of that one experience and the follow-up experiences that he had that weren't as intense, it really shifted his entire life. He was making large life decisions based on the trauma of what had happened. Now, what ended up happening was he just got fed up. He said, I feel like I'm dying. I feel like this is pulling me down. And when I first saw him in an interview, the man looked like a shell. I could count the rings underneath his eyes. I could see how tired this person was mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And wouldn't you know, after that first interview, he started talking a little bit more outside of the public eye, but then eventually came back for another interview with somebody else. And today, this is maybe 4 months later, when he first decided that he was going to come out and talk about it, he's saying the exact same thing that you're saying, Damian, where it's like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. He feels like he's free. And I talk to him very regularly, and the guy looks so good. His skin complexion has got color. He looks, filled out, like he's eating. He looks like he's sleeping. He's smiling. He's laughing. There's a lot of positivity that can come from this, but, not to be too long-winded, it does take somebody to be ready to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. A thought just occurred to me. I want to say that people are more apt to believe you if you tell them that you saw a ghost than if you tell them you saw a UFO or you were abducted or something like that. I think they're less apt to believe you if you say that you saw Bigfoot. But because I think a lot of people have seen UFOs, and so they're more apt to believe that. Not that many people have seen Bigfoot. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But what are your thoughts on this?
I think that I didn't worry about it because I didn't care what people thought.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I haven't been abducted, but I've seen stuff, and people look at you even for just seeing something. But my thoughts were, I saw what I saw. If you don't believe me, that's, you don't believe me.
Right. Yeah. What bugged me most about my memories of that abduction was I was almost made to feel like I had been, that I had gone crazy or that I just hallucinated the thing. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to start Black Lotus in the first place was to let other people who experienced the same thing I did, just to let them know that, they're not alone, and we all kind of go through the same doubts, and so yeah, I just wanted to let people know that, you're not alone. Yeah. But anyway, I think we're going to get out of here for the night, Ralph.
I want to add this. Something my friend was saying. He gave a bullet point list. I think he stopped at number 3 and number 4. So I want to add number 5. A lot of people are not interested in it because it will interfere with their comfy 9 to 5. They don't do it. Because not only entertaining the possibility widens that door, trying to believe people who are near them and their stories opens that door, and there's no turning back. They're not interested. They're just simply not interested. Somewhere inside, they know the possibility and the probability of certain things.
I wonder how these people are going to freak out if our government ever comes full disclosure and says, yep, these things do exist, and we've been working with them for a long time, and people have been being abducted for years and years and years. I mean, the people that won't allow this into their reality, they're just going to lose their little minds, I think,
There is coming a time to where people's comfortable lives are going to be taking a backseat to what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
It's coming.
There have also been...
It's happening now.
There's also been many
Right now.
people who are here right now who have lived many lifetimes ignoring this sort of wake-up call, okay? And what's unique about this time is that there are so many who are actually listening to it, that their consciousness, their vibration is beginning to raise those who have sort of been stagnant on that spiritual level for so many lifetimes. Now, the effect of that is that the person who is feeling this is kind of uncomfortable because they've resisted, or for whatever reason that's not where they wanted to go in terms of information, knowledge, and wisdom based on their own soul path or their agreements of coming into incarnation. So you're getting a lot of resistance because of that fear. There's an old world ancient fear that we're not letting go. It's rooted in duality. But this is where we're headed, guys. This is where we are facing in terms of our future. Everybody bringing others up in sense of this vibration, and we can even see it happening now in our current day. So,
yeah, most definitely. Keith Anthony Blanchard, Wild Trees, and of course from DarkHour Paranormal. Let's do this again, most definitely next week. I think talking to you guys is just fascinating. And like I said, I couldn't think of anybody more qualified to do this kind of roundtable than you guys, because you all have brilliant minds when it comes to the paranormal world. So
I appreciate that.
But anyway, folks, thanks a lot for watching. And again, we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat place. And so until next time, keep thinking and question everything.